Hello and welcome to the first episode of Know More About. I'm your host, Joe, and I'll be with you looking at different themes, different topics, different things that we can learn about our Catholic faith. Now, you may have already watched our first video on our channel, which was Know About. This is a series where we look at the same things, but from your point of view, from the pupils in our Academy Trust. Here we're going to do our first episode all about the Rosary. Roll credits! So this is the Know More About the Rosary. We're going to look at 5 things to do with the Rosary. And they are, firstly, a little bit about the history of the Rosary and where it came from. Second thing, about the prayers of the Rosary, what they are, why we say them. The third one is why we pray the prayer that's so focused on Mary. And the fourth thing is how we actually pray the Rosary. And then the fifth and final thing is the mysteries of the Rosary. So the history of the Rosary. There is no definite answer of where we know the Rosary came from. There's one quite long-held belief that Our Lady, Mary, Jesus' mother, appeared to St. Dominic. Now, St. Dominic had been given this great big task from the Pope. He was given the charge of trying to convince those who turned away from the true message of Christianity to come back. These are the people called the Albigensians, which is a big name which I shall only say once because I've probably said it wrong. And they believed that in the Old Testament was a different God to the New Testament God, and that Jesus wasn't actually God, that he was just an angel who wasn't even here in human body, he was just a spirit. And this was really wrong for so many reasons, and St. Dominic was asked to go and convince these people. He had received a vision from Mary where she said, "Here is a rosary." Explained to him how to pray it, and that by praying this rosary, people come back to Jesus, come back to believing that he was God and the faith would be restored. But that's the first place that we hear of the rosary coming from. The second is also to do with the religious orders. And monks and friars would, especially the monks, would be praying what's something called the Divine Office or the daily prayers. And as part of that, they would pray all psalms throughout the day. Really early in the morning, mid-morning, lunchtime, afternoon, evening, and then night. They'd pray these psalms. So very quickly, they'd get through all 150. Now, people wanted to join in this, but a lot of people are illiterate, which means that you cannot read. So instead of saying each of the psalms, they'd say a Hail Mary for each of those psalms. The Rosary was originally had 3 sets of mysteries. So 3 times 5 is 15. And within each of those mysteries, they'd say a decade, 10 Hail Marys. If you did all 3 mysteries, you'd do 150 Hail Marys. And each of these Hail Marys represented one of the Psalms. And this is a way that people could join in the prayer of the monks. So that's another reason where we might have got the Rosary from. The final thing about the history of the Rosary that I'd like to talk about is the reason we pray in October. Why is October so important? Many years ago, there was an empire called the Ottoman Empire. And they'd spread into many different areas where Christians were. And when they did, they destroyed churches, they removed Christianity, and forced people to convert. Now, it got to the stage that some of the huge Christian areas that St. Paul and the disciples had gone to before, including Jerusalem, had been taken over and were no longer Christian. The Ottoman Empire were heading in a huge navy force towards Europe to try and take Italy and France and Spain and these other areas that would look at maybe the fall of Christianity. The Pope at the time asked people to pray the Rosary, to pray that they wouldn't succeed, that the Christian forces, even though much smaller, would be able to defeat them. And that's what people did. They prayed the Rosary in October and they were defeated. The Ottomans were massively defeated by the smaller European, the Christian force. And they had to go back. They had to go back to their areas, and then their empire didn't grow much longer than that. Please forgive me, any historians who I may have got any of that wrong.